who will be providing more insights on the topic of OKRs to go from vague vision to effective execution. And basically, he is from International OKRs Alliance. And we warmly welcome you, Niroshan, and thanks for joining with us today. Over to you to start with your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Yeah, and it's absolute pleasure to speak to you at this moment. Hopefully, the intention is to share some, I would say, game-changing few pointers for all of you. Depending on where you are in terms of OKRs and your understanding, we probably should be able to kind of direct you towards some great pointers, right? It's compared to the time that we probably require to master OKRs. There's going to be a small amount of time, but during this time, let's see what is the maximum we can gain. With that hope, I'll start the session, right? So let me share the screen. So I'll be running a quick deck. So I'll make it interactive. So there are quite a few areas that will be covered. But at the same time, if you do have a question, put them in the chat. We'll pick up them during the Q&A. We will allocate some good time. Generally, Satish, what's the timing? Like 15 minutes or any recommended time
for Q&A, Niro?
Yeah.
Yeah, Q&A, we have few questions already, like 7-8 questions already captured from our side. So yes, we can, if we are already covering during your session, we can go ahead. But if not, maybe we can spend some extra time on that.
Okay. So I'll put a time in that case, right? Just so that I'll stop at that moment here. I'll set it up myself. So now it's 8:10. Let's say we are gonna run this. This means 40. I'll make it 20, right? So at least we have 15 to 20 minutes for the Q&A. Okay, so with that, let's start. Let me present this screen. Can you confirm you see my screen?
Yes.
Super. Yeah, so the topic is from vague vision to effective execution. In that, I'm just going to touch base on two key problems that I have observed in most of my consulting engagements for the last decade. Also, I did a quite intensive survey, analysis on the surveys done, leadership surveys done for the last 3 years. So I looked at the pattern, I looked at the problems reported by the leaders, also the production staff above organizational efficiency as well as executional mastery, right? So there were quite a few obvious patterns that people have repeatedly mentioned as problematic in organization. This is irrespective of the continent. This is irrespective of the domain we are in, whether it's tech or non-tech. Problem seems to be quite common. The patterns that people see problematic seem to be common, right? One of the major problems that people repeatedly did bring up was poor leadership direction and misalignment, right? So you can go through any leadership survey. This will come as one of the top 3 problems being highlighted by people. This includes the senior leadership, right? In one research done by a very famous survey organization, found out that the managers, senior managers are not able to answer simple questions with regard to the company direction, right? Simple questions like, hey, tell me the top two goals that the organization is trying to achieve in the next 3 months. It's quite strange that senior leadership is unable to answer that simple question as well, right? And you can ask yourself how much attention given to this day in day out basis in your organization, right? I'm sure some of you or most of you are into coaching, and most of you have experienced the same pattern. So that's one. The other problem that the people have mentioned is malfunction in executions. This is one of the top 5 problems as well, right? People have repeatedly brought up. So in this presentation, I'm going to touch base on these 2 key problems. One, organizations are not being able to create clarity in terms of the vision, the strategic direction. The second thing is malfunction in execution, right? Poor execution. These 2 things will have to synergize, work in synergy in order for any organizations to become a high-performing organization. The problem is twofold. It's a bit of a paradoxical situation, right? Let's run through it and see how OKRs can help us here. So I've been consulting for the last 5 to 6 years. I transitioned from mainstream agile coaching and consulting into OKR coaching and consulting. Not that I gave up mainstream agile coaching and consulting, right? While I'm doing that, I pay more attention on OKR aspect because I see that a lot of organizations tend to miss the clarity, tend to miss the execution efficiency at the strategic level as well as the team level. So what I'm going to discuss here are not just theoretical perspectives. These are practical aspects that you would have observed as well. And then I'm also going to back up my arguments with a well-known book, Traction. Not sure any one of you have read that. Some of the pointers that I'm going to talk about are inspired by what that book Traction talk about as well. So if you haven't gone through that book, if you haven't read that book, if you haven't gone through the audiobook, they have a very concise audiobook as well. I highly encourage you to put that down, the book Traction. It's a best-selling book for many years on Amazon, so you can have a look at it. And also underlying framework that the book spoke about is called entrepreneurial operating system. So I'll be kind of touching base on some of the concepts from that as well, right? So let's dive in and see what is there for us to discuss here. So one question for you, right? The question is, why do most organizations with brilliant visions fail at execution, right? So if you just search this in ChatGPT or Gemini or any other search engine, you will get very specific pointers towards this question, answers towards this question. If you Google it, you'll find hundreds of answers, talking about the same concern. So a lot of organizations do focus on a greater, smarter strategy, right? They focus a lot on great vision, right? And they try to break it down into a strategy, right? However, we see that a lot of organizations are failing, right, at the execution level. So the question is why? Why is it that, right? That's one thing, one question for us to remember. Then I have a what if question at this point, right? What if the company vision is vague or blurry? Now, here the problem that we discuss is the vision is great, however, the execution fails, right? At the execution level, companies fail. There are many organizations failing at the execution level. They have a greater vision, they have a greater strategy. However, in terms of execution, they are not able to do great. On the other hand, what if the company vision itself is vague or blurry, right? It will amplify the problem. Now, having a greater vision, having a greater strategy, we are failing at the execution level. What if the vision itself becomes blurry or very vague? So that amplifies the problem, right? And one fact that I found when I researched about this topic some time back was that around 70% of strategic initiative fail, not because of lack of vision, but due to poor execution, right? I'll tell you one major personal experience that I went through when I worked for a big bank back then in 2007 to 2016. So this project kicked off somewhere around 2011, right? Which was supposed to be a global project because it's a global bank. It's one of the most prominent banks in the world. So I was part of a team who was supposed to basically do a knowledge management framework. The project was that, right? So we came up with a greater vision, we came up with a greater strategy, greater blueprint. By the time we are done with that, pretty much, it took about 4 to 5 months. So by that time, we had already spent thousands of dollars, right? Probably several thousands of dollars, right? Because it was primarily board of directors, chief CXO level leaders who were driving the initiative. It was a global team, right? We had teams in Sri Lanka, Manila, Egypt, Hong Kong, China, and India. So after several months, we started execution, and at the execution level, we faced major problems. And 8 months down the line, we basically had to demise the project. We basically had to throw away the work that we have done. The leadership thought this is not going to work, right? The primary problem was at the execution level, right? That was one of the greater experience that I have had as a lead. I was a lead, technical lead at that time. So we miserably failed at the execution level because we had not actually plan the execution effectively, right? We had a high level blueprint, but when we try to break it down into the execution at multiple locations, it miserably failed. So this is exactly what this says, right? It highlights that a majority of over 70 or around 70% of strategic initiatives fail. Not because you don't have a greater vision, because you fail at the execution level. So this is a problem, right? And if you have seen that problem, then you are halfway through to solve that, because even at a philosophical level, we know that solving a problem starts with knowing the problem, right? So acknowledging the root problem is the first step. On the other hand, lack of strategic alignment leading to fragmented execution and disengaged employees. So this is the other major problem that we observe in majority of the organization, particularly in large organizations, right? In the same organization, around the same time frame, there was a huge regulatory fraud, right? Somewhere in US, an employee of the same company guided basically helped fraud activity done by an outsider, right? And that caused so much penalty. The company was forced to restructure. They basically came up with certain mandates in terms of laying off. They said 25,000 people globally should be laid off, just because they thought the company is too complex, too big, right? And they had a 5-year restricted time where they could not do changes. They had to go through trainings month by month, getting everyone in the organization going through these mandatory compliance training, etc. Right? So what we talk about here is exactly the same thing, right? Generally, when it comes to organizations, they lack the strategic alignment. When they lack the strategic alignment, what happens then is you start executing the plan, the strategic initiatives in silos, right? You have fragmented execution happening. Different silo group work themselves to do the work, right? They are serious, but the fact that they are just fragmented, right? And then the employees start becoming disengaged, and from that point, it becomes a totally chaotic situation. So this is another observation. You may have seen the same thing, or you may have seen similar observations yourself, right? So if so, just map it out, right? And also ask a question. Ask yourself, what else? What other problems have you seen yourself as a consultant or a professional? Execution itself suffers, right? So we learned that in the first few slides. Worst come worst, vague vision creates more problems. So this is the paradoxical situation, right? This is the paradox that we are in. So neither the strategy or the vision, nor the execution is working for us, right? And it's going to be really, really tough. So I'll also talk about a quick personal metaphor, different metaphor, right? Let's say we are planning a big journey, adventurous journey, going through, let's say, Amazon, right? So it's gonna take many days, many weeks, and you are halfway through, right? You are being guided by a particular vision. You have a strategy. However, in middle of the jungle, strategy fails, right? Now, when the strategy fails, you tend to take tactical moves, right? And you're kind of panicking. Your brain doesn't function effectively, and you start panicking yourself, and you are kind of taking, the most easiest and immediate action as for your emotional triggers. So it's not the brain working at this point, it's your emotion kicking off and kind of guiding the journey. Now, what would happen is, you'll go worst, because when you are emotionally hijacked, when you are emotionally triggered, you are not being able to be rational, right? So you keep moving, you keep running, but your every move you make becomes wrong. So you are utterly confused, and you run fast, but you are running towards the wrong direction, right? You don't know that it's the wrong direction, and you keep running. Now, this is where we are in organization, at least in some cases, right? And particularly as coaches, as agile coaches, as consultants, we kind of hear these problems a lot. Now, recently, yesterday actually, right, I faced a leadership discussion for a new consulting engagement in Sri Lanka. It's one of the biggest companies in the country, mobile companies, and they were explaining almost the same thing. They said, we have capable people. They were great in their vertical. They were great in their small niche when they got to work with their colleagues who have the same subject matter expertise. Now the problem is they have formed a new team which is a cross-functional team that consists of DevOps, that consists of API team, that consists of security team, consists of delivery, technical team, product managers, and business. Now they are not able to deliver, right? They are basically pulling into multiple directions, and the leadership itself is kind of having their own ego, and they haven't settled, right? So the problem is twofold. One, leadership hasn't come to a common ground. They believe their stance is right because they have been working for the company for the last 10 to 15 years. So, some of the leaders, at least few of leaders, have worked more than 15 years. So they have a lot of expertise, but at the same time, so much ego, right? So they are not being able to come to a common ground as a leadership team, therefore not being able to align themselves in terms of the vision and the direction that we need to run. On the other hand, at the execution level, before we kind of start delivering and sorting out the delivery problems, right? Team level, cross-functional delivery specific problems. They have cultural issues, right? They have politics. They have ego problems, right? Basically, all the dysfunctions are happening now, right? This is basically what's happening in at least majority of the companies who feel they have a problem. So the question is, how can we sort this out, right? As a consultant, as an OKR coach, as an agile coach, enterprise level consultant, what is your tool set, right? What are the tools that you can pull out in order to help such situations? This is where OKRs come into play, right? So I have taken so much time explaining up to this point because we first need to understand the problem, right? And then we need to ask the question, hey, at this point, if not OKRs, what would be the tool set you are going to pull out, right? And tell the company that, hey, we have set of tools for you, right? We have set of techniques that will help you, right? So that's where the consultants start working. Now I'm halfway through doing that proposal, right? And so I'm gonna say, get that done by end of day tomorrow, so that Monday morning it should hit their inbox. So the question I was asking is the same. What's the tool set that I'm gonna use in terms of this? So OKRs comes as the major tool, right? Not the only tool, but a major tool that will guide your consulting journey, that will allow you to become an effective consultant or a coach, right? Let's see how, right? Now, when it comes to the organizations, I spoke about the book traction, right? That word comes from that. It's a generic word, but I think I'm personally influenced with that book. That's a very provoking concept, very common concept, but very much overlooked concept as well, right? So one of the root problems for the problems that I explained, one, poor execution, second, poor vision and strategy, is the poor traction. This is an underlying root problem, right? What is traction? Traction is to fall, right? So it gets worse. So this narrates a story here. When the goals are gone wild, right? The traction becomes poor, and the problem gets worst when the goals that you have set gone wild. Now, in that corporate real life problem that I'm gonna solve. So they have picked me. So there are no competitors here. Therefore, it's just that I have to just give them the right tool set, right? One of the starting points for me is to have a 4-hour leadership alignment discussion get all the VP level, CXO level leaders to sit with me, go through a workshop, right? And that workshop will basically talk about their goals, right? What we tell here is, so we already have the problems identified, but the problems get worst when your goals are wrong, right? When your goals are inappropriate, the problem becomes much worse. How, right? So this is a research done in 1990 by Harvard Business School. The paper is still there. If you search for, I'll give you the title of the paper. In that research that they did using so many research work done, finally they put a paper out talking about this same issue, right? So they, in that research paper, they came up with a warning. The warning said goals may cause systematic problems in organizations due to narrowed focus, unethical behavior, increased risk taking, decreased cooperation, and decreased intrinsic motivation. Use care when applying goals in your organization, right? So this is a very serious statement. We generally believe that goals will help us to get to the destination that we are aiming to get at. At the same time, goals can be the single reason for failure, miserable failure, if the goals are gone wild. So the paper they came up was themed goals gone wild. You can search for this. You can put down this pointer. You can actually search for that. So they spoke about the systematic side effects of over-prescribing goal setting, right? They discuss the complications that can come up when you pay too much attention on goal setting, right? So they spoke about various problems. One problem they spoke about is goals being too specific, right? They also did, we also have a very famous test done on this, right? To test the human psychological malfunctioning. It's a default malfunctioning, right? That is there for saving our energy, right? It is called I forgot it. It's basically about blindly giving the attention. I forgot the term, right? So the condition is that it's a brain condition, right? Condition is that when you're given a too specific goal, you focus deeply on it, and when you focus deeply on it, you tend to miss every other environmental changes around you, right? Every other thing associated with that as well. So you are just narrowly focusing on the given goal, right? The test done was uh, basically there was a ball passing activity. So there was a basketball, let's say, that people started kind of passing from one to another, right? They were about 6-member team. So they were wearing the white T-shirt, and then while they were doing, you are basically asked to watch how many times the ball is passed by these people, members wearing white T-shirt, right? While they were given that task, the game was going on. So they basically put a black color. The person wearing a black T-shirt, kind of a gorilla, right? Kind of costume, and you got that fellow black color T-shirt, person wearing the black color T-shirt, crossing the ground, right? Going through the players. Surprisingly, the people could not notice that guy going across the court wearing the black color T-shirt, right? The reason, simple reason, is that our brain is just focusing on the specific goal given. When it is too specific, the brain does not have any capacity to focus on anything else. So this is a problem, right? Example, if you, so one practical example they spoke about was they spoke about this failed car model by Ford. It was Pinto, somewhere in 1990s. So they were given very high number targets. They said, this is the production target. So the engineering team, the production team was so focused on the numbers given as targets. So while they were doing the production, engineers noticed a malfunction in the design. The malfunction or the problem, the defect was the petrol tank was located just 6 inch away from the rear buffer, right? Risking the firing when even a slight hit happens to the rear buffer. So they actually went ahead because no one talked about it. They had the goals that they were given. So they went ahead and did it, right? They did the production. They made the targets. But when the cars were out in the market, there were hundreds of major disasters. Hundreds of cars got fired with a slight hit on the buffer, right? This was a major failure. The reason was the wrong goal given. The goals were done. Goals were very specific, right? People focused on the goals, but it resulted a major disaster in the history of automobile industry. So this is basically what they're talking about. So this is the other problem, right? So you talk about the goal setting, you have various methods to do this stuff, right? When the goals will go wrong, everything else will go wrong as well. So this is another thing that you need to remember. Now we'll move on to the OKRs, but at the same time, I would like to just open up maybe quick 5 minutes. It will have to be limited for 5 minutes so that we don't overrun. But if you do have any questions, maybe you can put them in the chat. We can have a quick look at it. So far, any questions from anyone? Anything that you felt you probably need to clarify? So we have few chats. Okay, so yeah, so you have Satish. Thank you for the link. Yeah, that's the book as well. Thank you for the support there. Traction. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. But think of note down any questions you may have. So what you have done so far is basically setting the stage to talk about the OKRs, right? Where OKRs can come in is pulling out when you need to pull out certain tools to solve these problems that we discussed, right? So a few problems that we discussed. One, having a vague vision, right? Second, poor execution. Poor execution can happen even if you have a greater vision, right? Then the problem is more complex now. Then the poor traction, right? The traction is twofold. One, internal traction. That means when you're trying to make a change organizationally, within the organization, you need to engage with the people, right? If there are 1,000 people in the example that I spoke about, the organization had 300 people globally, right? Not 300, 300,000 people. So working with 300,000 people globally is challenging. One of the biggest problems is the exact same thing, traction, poor traction. How do you ensure the message that you are trying to convey reaches out to all the 300 people in the organization globally? And how can you ensure that everyone is aligned? Not easy at all, right? The second thing is the traction between the organization and outside. So that's probably with your users and the customers and the stakeholders. How do you ensure you connect with them, engage with them, synergize with them, right? So that's one other problem. Then the other problem that we spoke about is goals can go wild, right? What if you have the wrong goal set? So you can't expect anything good there, right? Because the goals are wrong itself. And how can you get the execution efficient? Because you're running a race, you're running in the wrong direction, right? So no matter how fast you run, but you are running the wrong race, right? You're running into the wrong direction, so you cannot win. So this is the context, right? And I'm not just saying these are just theoretical problems, right? And yesterday, it's a lot of pain that they are talking about, right? And uh, it was a CXO and basically another CXO level HR leader who were basically reaching out to me. And then, in that discussion, what we discuss is, how can we solve this, right? So we have to fix these problems. So when you're doing that, right, one thing that we get wrong is we straight away jump into the solutions without clearly understanding the problem, and then we have the wrong goal set. So OKRs will help you to navigate through these things. Did I share the screen? No. Right. So let me share. Okay, I'll run this again.
Sorry to interrupt. I see a hand raised by Gautam.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Gautam.
Yeah. Hi, Niroshan.
Hi.
First of all, I think the subject seems to be really interesting because this was one of the subject wherein, and I should thank Satish also to organizing this particular session on this subject, right? Even though most of the organization may or may not be so closely working on this subject, but I believe the OKRs is at times gets ignored by the organization, maybe because of various factors, right? External factors, or maybe at times it's a co-located setup, if at all it is there, like we have on-site and offshore, and the decision mostly takes place from the on-site, and offshore just follows it. At that time, even though we set OKRs, but we tend to sideline or maybe discourage them. And as a result of that, I have seen most of the time the decision making fails within the organization. And especially when it comes to the execution part, right? Wherein if the execution has to happen very effectively, the decision making also has to accompany it. So, but because of these many challenges within the organization, this area of OKRs, which is been discussed at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, when we sit back and see that did we really achieve the OKRs, and we tend to see like it is hardly been achieved because of a lot of factors which comes from because of the co-located or external things, or maybe the restructuring within the organization. So stuff like this. So my question as such is, at times I have seen is like, as I like somewhere mentioned about the decision making, right? There's some decision I could see that as a non-management guy, in the sense I'm not sitting in a board of directors or any of those guys, and the decision what they used to take, I at times feel that okay, it could have been taken in a different way, wherein it would have been helpful for the employees rather than just for the sake of taking that decision. So how does this actually goes wrong? Because as an common employee can see that okay, the decision seems to be slightly wrong, but at the management level they tend to take that decision. Don't they see this impact from their eyes in the same way what the common employee is seeing?
Yeah, I mean it's a very good question, very complex one, right? So I think you spoke about quite a few problems as well, right? And I think kind of the way you described the problem also just indicated that uh, the way you look at you, not just you, your organization that you're referring, uh, looks at OKRs in the wrong way. It's not another goal setting framework, right? So most of the so I know the most of the organizations look at it as an extension to the objectives, right? So I'll tell you how it was invented. It was invented by Andy Grove from Intel in 1990. So he was assigned a major project, right, to kind of make Intel one of the prominent organizations globally. So he was tasked with that, and then he was researching about the effective ways to get there. He suddenly saw MBO, Management by Objectives, which was invented by Peter Drucker. So he started adapting it, and then he saw, there's something blocking him, and it does not allow him to kind of create sufficient clarity. Then he researched and found out OKRs. He basically founded OKRs, right? So he said, well, we are going to have a very new a way of crafting our goals and tracking. So he came up with this, and the definition is basically saying, the objectives is just a direction, right? This is what we do even in terms of the general goal setting. An objective or a goal is nothing but a direction. So we try to stop at that level and then kind of go, right? So that's where traditional organizations fail. That's a key reason. Then, and Grove introduced the second term, that is the key results. This is a kind of a game changer. What it does is it will tell us how to achieve the direction we set through the objective. So you set the direction through the objective, then through key results, you basically answer the question, how do we achieve this direction, right? So you come up with a set of milestones that will guide you to get to your end direction. So this is basically what it is. And I have seen even in my country, I mean, pretty much every organization talks about it, right? And they haven't mastered it. They haven't got even experts, coaches who have mastered the tool, right? So they start adapting it, right? And you also did mention at the end of the year when you look at the things, things are not done and achieved. So that's the wrong way to look at it, right? This is not something you're gonna define at the beginning of the year and then look at the end of the year. That's a traditional approach, right? So in this system, we have a critical element, right? One critical element is key results. The second critical element is the cycle, right? We introduce an OKR cycle, and the cycle is basically suggesting you review each and every OKR weekly basis, right? And then at the end of every quarter. So you have no room for disparity, or if something is not working, you're going to figure that out weekly basis, and then you have to act on it, right? So this is what I see, Gautam. It's a great question. So I also see the same problem. I see the complaint that I recently had a chat with another Australian-based company, right? It was a foreigner. They actually approached me to get kind of a different goal done. But then, the colleague who introduced me said, I'm an OKR coach. And then he had this discussion. He also said, the company he worked previously started adapting, but it failed at a level, right? So these are the different things. I think we grasp this tool at different levels. Therefore, we just see that things are not working, right? So here, potentially, I will touch base on how exactly we should start adapting this and what are the critical aspects that we need to look at. So I think, these things fail due to the reasons we discussed, right? So it may be the poor strategic level clarity. It might be the execution malfunctioning. It might be poor traction. Example, leadership is well aware and they have crafted the OKRs effectively, but they use the old vocabulary, and another company reaching out to be for another quick consulting. It's like a accountability problem, right? So they complain people don't show accountability, right? And they said, we have OKRs, but their vocabulary is CEO has crafted the OKR and cascaded. That's the wrong way to do it, right? And it's not going to work. It's not something that you're going to cascade. Cascading is prohibited here. We are not going to cascade. We are going to align the organization. And that requires every layer to synergize. And I think in your problem also, I sense that synergy is lacking, right? It's probably these OKRs probably are done by senior leadership or leadership kind of rolled down. When that is the case, it's going to fail definitely because people will not have the buy-in, right? They're not going to believe what's happening. So there are a lot of complications around this actually, right? But Gautam, when I work on the organizations, I don't like just like. By the way, can I know what's the role you're playing so that I know where?
I'm like currently I'm playing a role of project manager.
Right.
But when it comes to the topic of decision making, it's like like in my organization in the last 1 year time, we had 2 rounds of restructuring. And by the time we settle down with one team, they say like, okay, there is one more round of restructuring. And the restructure happens. And the employees are also in panic, saying that what's actually going to take place or what's are the changes which are being expected and all those things. Like say, as a common person, like we think that, okay, a common employee within the organization, we think, okay, it could have been done in a different way. Like it could have been like a month after completion of the first restructuring, they could have waited for one more, like waited for some time to settle, so that the next restructuring could have been done at least, say, in an year or maybe after 2 years' time, so that all the effective or maybe the benefits of that restructuring could have been taken out. But things changes very drastically, like wherein we do not have any control. We just see that, okay, so what's actually happening before us, we just follow it.
Yeah. Agree. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, the problems are everywhere, right? But what I generally do is whenever I start now, in fact, it's a high profile client, right? And I had done previous coaching, so they came to me and they are not going to look for another coach, right? But when I propose the solution, right, I never brought up the term OKRs as well with them, right? I'm gonna kind of generalize the solution, and then I'm gonna say, I want maximum, optimum clarity created in terms of what the leadership is trying to accomplish, right? So the tool that I'm gonna use is the OKRs there, right? So I'm gonna create that, and then also one other thing that OKR talks about is accountability. So I'm going to clear out the accountability, and I'm going to sit down with the leadership team, list down every team member, clearly specify their accountabilities, right? So that's basically the approach that we need to take. We need not too much vocal about the term OKRs. It's just that we have to gradually kind of introduce that to the people, particularly the team, the people, leadership folks who haven't heard about this, right? Shouldn't be kind of just wondering what this tool is all about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that make sense? So do you think we can proceed, and then probably we can pick up on this towards the latter part of the session as well?
Yes, I think we can proceed, because I think people are waiting to see
The
main
OKRs.
chapter.
Yes. Okay, cool. All right. So with that, let's go here and We are just here, right? So it's the bridge between basically, if you ask me in a sentence, what is OKRs, what is it doing, right? So you have your ambitious goals / dreams, you have results, right? You want to have the most optimum results. So the bridge between these two is a system, right? A proper system put down in order for the people to collaborate, synergize, and produce work. That system is OKRs, right? So as I just explained earlier, if you look at the primary definition of objectives and key results, it's two things, right? One, objectives. Second, key results. Remember, the definition is also talking about the cycle. It's not just these two words alone. That is where people get wrong. They look at it, they hear about OKRs, and they all of a sudden just Google or even ChatGPT now, right? Just find the common definition, and they say, okay, this is an extension to objectives. So you add key results on top of objectives. It's true, but at the same time, what we're trying to achieve is quite unique here, right? So if we want to just ask the question, what exactly it is, you can say it is a management methodology, right? It is a management methodology that will allow you to focus on the most important issues throughout the organization, right? This is one problem that we face. I mean, we focus on a lot of problems, but we are struggling to find out the most important problems, right? So this will allow you to find them as well as focus on them. This is also something that's not written here is this is also a critical thinking framework, right? It's a critical thinking tool. So if you talk about the critical thinking in problem solving, now in that client requirement that I spoke about, that I'm supposed to give a proposal by end of day tomorrow, right? So that we can discuss the next steps Monday onwards. It requires so much critical thinking. I have to sit down, go through my tool set, pick up the right tools, and kind of assemble a custom-made program for them, right? This requires so much thinking. And I will not be able to, we just had a 1.5 hour discovery call. I will not be able to, architect the exact solution there. So what I'm going to, my workshop, it's going to be 2-day workshop that includes a leadership, for our leadership alignment discussion. So it's going to start with the critical thinking aspect, right? The very first 4 hours will be spent on critical thinking, getting people to think critically about the problem they are in. And some of those folks might not realize there's a problem, right? And when we had the VP level leadership team brought up into one table, they just fired up against each other, right, in front of me. And see, they're not like functioning critically there, right? They're rather having their own agendas. When they feel they are kind of offended, they just go against it, right? So you have to just park those concerns, park all the other issues that they may have, should get to a stage where we get them to critically think, right? So I have crafted this a special deep dive retrospection for these coaching engagements. That's the very first 4 hours of any major consultation to troubleshoot, because we need to understand the real root problems. We haven't figured them out. We know the symptoms, right? So OKR is that. OKR is a way to critically think about the solutions that you need to provide, the goals that you need to focus, the milestones and the key results that you have to focus on. Okay. So if you look at again each term, the objectives. Objective is what is it to be achieved? What are you trying to accomplish? Right? No more, no less. By definition, objectives are significant, right? They can't be just easier objectives to achieve. They're significant, right? Concrete, action-oriented, and ideally inspirational. So you need to make your objectives inspirational, aspiring, so that people will work towards it. So when I sit down with the leadership team next week, probably a few weeks later, that's the first thing that I'm going to do, right? So I want the team to be inspired, seeing the objective. At the moment, it's not the case. They have objectives, but they have their own siloed objectives, right? So we need to get them to believe these objectives first place. Once designed properly, they are vaccine for fuzzy thinking and fuzzy execution. So the major reason for fuzzy thinking, people don't think critically enough, right? That's what fuzzy thinking means. Then the fuzzy executions, you just execute on the surface, right? You don't dive deep enough. One of the key reasons is also the poor goals, right? They're not concrete, they're not big enough, right? Even personally, and a majority of the people, majority of us, right, lived there for many years. And at times, I think some of you would have realized, oh, I have been living in that mediocre game, fuzzy execution and fuzzy thinking for years and sometimes decades, right? But you realize, oh, there's a better version, there's a better way to do this, right? You have much more energy and much more power. That's what we need from the teams. The question is, how can you enable that kind of energy in your people, right? Objectives, nothing else. This is what all the great companies are doing. They invest so much time and energy to craft the right direction. If the direction is really great, and people will start being inspired. Then the second aspect is key results, right? Key results are nothing but milestones that will allow you to reach your objective, right? So you have set an objective. Let's say I'm telling myself personally, let's say I want to be a global keynote speaker, right? I can also kind of consider a role model going into the same stage of Tony Robbins, big goal, right? So this is an objective, and in order to get to that point, what are the major milestones that I have to hit, right? So you can ask personally this question. So if you are a coach, if you are a project manager, if you are a consultant who are trying to help the organization, get them to start with a greater objective, very clear, specific, but concrete, inspirational objective, and then ask them, okay, how can you get to that point, right? That's a big goal that takes sometimes, a few months and years. How do you think you can get to that point? That is where the milestones come in, right? So where you go in a journey, big journey, and in that journey, you're going to set certain milestones, right? So you make it somewhat gradual, but each milestone will take you so much ahead in your journey, right? It will allow you to make a steady progress. It's not a kind of a slow progress that we are saying. We are saying make it a steady progress. Each milestone should get you to closer, right? Closer to your victory, closer to your objective. So the key results benchmark and monitor how we get to the objectives. They are specific, time-boxed, aggressive, yet realistic. So this is the other thing, right? So even personally, I have done this myself at times. I made my objective so exhaustive, so stressful. It's not going to work, right? When as a human, our psychology, our brain does not function, we are threatened, right? So we have quite a few hormones driving our energy and focus. So when you are stressed, stress is required up to a level, but when it is overdose, it's released overly. What happens is it releases dopamine, right? Stress hormones. And too much stress hormones will make your system malfunction, right? And that is what happens when your key results are not so realistic. So you have to make them challenging to a level it's somewhat challenging, but they should be doable, right? Otherwise, you're going to freak out. Your brain is going to freak out just looking at that goal, knowing that there's no way to achieve this. So that's a very key aspect. So make them challenging, but at the same time realistic. More importantly, they are measurable and verifiable. You should be able to measure them during the execution. You should be able to verify them once they're done, right? There has to be clear cut saying done or not done. There can't be any vague answer at the end of it. No, not sure whether we have achieved. No, right? Have you done it? Haven't you? Right? Yes or no? It's a Boolean answer, right? So that's one thing. It's not just a goal setting. OKRs help you fix your operating system. So this is why what I highlighted earlier. Majority of organizations that claim they are using OKRs, they just have goals, right? Extend that with key results. That's nowhere close to what OKR is all about, right? I mean, yes, it creates a bit more clarity, but it's not going to do anything more than just goals, right? So you may have a bit more clarity, so you should be able to operate at a better efficiency rate, effective rate. But it's not the ultimate way to go about it. So if you implement OKRs correctly, it fixes your operating system. What does that mean? As an organization, there are multiple elements that have to work effectively for the organization to operate effectively, right? So we call it the operating system, the organizational operating system. The first thing is the strategy. But again, if I ask you a question, do you know what your company's strategy is, right? Have you been looking at it weekly basis, maybe monthly, right? And answer is doubtful. My observation tells me that most of us will not be able to say this is exactly our strategy. At least you don't have to remember it, right? At least can you find your strategy? Is it made available to you? And even Gautam did probably mention this as well. So some of the decisions are made at the senior level, and they believe it's their privilege, right? And it's not others' business, right? So they don't think the strategy should be made visible to everyone, and it's not going to work. I mean, at least if not everything at the strategic level, there has to be certain common information shared, directions shared with everyone in the organization, right? The major problem that I see is when it comes to strategy, it's just not done right? So the question, how can you define your company strategy? So there are quite a lot of things that you have to define and streamline. So these are 6 key aspects, right? That I recommend every organization to start streamlining and refining. One is called BHAG. That's a long-term, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So all the great organizations have a BHAG. Even I recommend personally, you must have your BHAG. BHAG is your 20 to 25 year long high level goal, right? And then with that, you need to go one step further. You have to identify the major key results, right? The major key results of the, not the major key results, what really matters, what are the most areas, right? The areas that mostly matter to you as an individual, as an organization. Then the core values, right? Core values is basically a set of core values that the organization will be focusing on. So, I mean, we do have core values, but I don't think we are paid enough attention. I don't think it's made visible to everyone in the organization, right? If you go and ask your colleagues, even if you ask what are the core values of my organization, if you are unable to answer it, I think we are not operating at the optimum capacity, right? Core focus and niche, and this is another important area that I work with when I do a organizational transformation, right? So I get to leadership discussions with the CXO level leadership to discuss their core focus. When you ask the question, what is your core focus? Most of the organizations do not have an answer, right? And then Dinesh, and then you, I basically ask, put down your two niche areas. What are unique niches for you, right? Then the 5-year picture. So you come up with the 5-year picture, set of high-level directions that you want to achieve. 12 months OKRs, 5 to 7 company-wide top priorities for the year and budget allocated. Then 90-day OKRs. So this is the quarterly or 90-day OKRs that we need to come up with. Finally, you also need to identify the top critical issues. Organizationally, what are the top issues that we have been facing that are outstanding? So you need to work with the leadership team to get this sorted. Then the next thing is the priorities, right? So we talk about the priorities, but when it comes to priorities, the organizations have very poor visibility around the top priorities of the organization. Also, we do not have an effective system in order for us to ensure the priorities are set and reviewed and monitored timely and effectively. So few pointers here. One, you got to enable the transparency, right? So as agilists, as agile coaches and project managers, you know these terms, so you need to enable the maximum possible transparency, right? Optimally. It doesn't have to be maximum, it has to be optimal. What's the right level of transparency? You need to ensure that's established. The second thing is prioritize your issue backlog. You also need to look at your top issues organizationally and prioritize them week by week basis, right? These are the problems that you have to go and solve weekly basis organization. Third, develop your scorecard, right? Scorecard is basically a set of metrics tracked weekly basis. The purpose is it's a weekly pulse check. It's not a detailed investigation done, report done in order to go deeper into each and every aspect of the progress. It is just a pulse check, just like a doctor would check your pulses to see whether you are healthy or not, right? When you go to a doctor, right? We as organizational therapists, managers should be able to do a pulse check quickly. So that's this check, right? So you have 10 to 15 organization-wide metrics set, and that will indicate the health of the organization. So we need to keep tracking that week by week basis. And then you will start resolving the top issues week by week basis. So for that, we introduce a format called IDS, right? It talks about the format that you can follow in terms of resolving your issues, top issues. The first thing is issue. What is the issue you are talking about? Then discuss, right? In every management review meeting that happens weekly, you're going to discuss what that issue, right? Your perspective, the insights. You brainstorm and discuss. Then come up with action items to solve. So at the end of every discussion, talking about issue, you agree on set of action items, and the action items go into your to-do backlog, right? And you start fixing them because these are the top priorities for you. The third aspect is, that's the kind of the last element that I'm going to talk about, the execution, right? The execution is fixable, but how? This is where OKRs come in to rescue you. Use OKRs to plan and execute. So if you are even a project manager, right, you may not have a lot of exposure or opportunity to work with the senior leadership. So the least you can do is at the program level, at the portfolio, at the roadmap level, you can use 90-day OKRs, right? So if you have involvement with the senior leadership, so you plan your leadership, senior leadership initiatives, senior leadership goals and priorities through OKRs. So you have a cycle of 90 days, right? So you have a few two stages here. One, 90-day OKRs. Break down your big 12 goals into 12-month goals, actually, right? The yearly goals into 90-day OKRs. So you look at the yearly goals, you break them down into 90-day OKRs. Set 3 to 5 company-wide OKRs, 3 to 5 team level for each team. DevOps, SecOps, your project team, each team should have 3 to 5 team level OKRs. Company has 3 to 5 company level OKRs. And if possible, if appropriate, go for 1 to 2 individual OKRs as well. This is optional. It's just so that individuals will have their own focus areas defined through the individual OKRs as well. So 3 levels, right? Meeting cadence is basically the OKR cycle. That's the next thing that I'm going to discuss here, right? So the structure that we introduce is simple but very profound. So you have an annual OKR review here, right? Annual OKR review. So that's done annually. Of course, evaluate Q4 objectives and previous year results. So you're going to do this in the Q4. So you have to evaluate the Q4 objectives and also, look back the previous year results and kind of have a analysis and conclusions. Then you're going to have annual OKR planning. So you need to retrospect together, review the previous year OKRs, and then plan the next year OKRs together with the leadership. Finalize, then, the finalization of annual OKRs is done. Once you have the annual OKRs, then you go for the quarterly OKR planning. Now, see, the annual OKRs is just kind of a annual event, but then following that, you're going to have quarterly OKRs. So the quarterly, when you do the quarterly OKRs, you have the opportunity to go back and update, even revise your annual OKRs. Sometimes certain annual OKRs might not be relevant, so you have to go back and change that. But the primary focus is given on the immediate 90 days, immediate quarterly planning, right? In that, you come up with 5 to 7 90-day company OKRs, 5 to 7 team level OKRs, if possible. Go for individual 1 to 2 quarterly individual OKRs as well. So while you're doing the execution, you have a weekly OKR review. That is basically a 90 minutes meeting done weekly, reviewing OKR. So it will have a proper structure where you basically run through your OKRs, as well as you talk about the top issues, you talk about the solutions, you agree on action items weekly basis, right? This will allow me to ensure that your OKRs are on track. And if there are any deviations, you have the opportunity to go back to your process, fix them, right? And then in the next review, upcoming weekly review, OKR review, you talk about the progress made, right? So this is pretty much what we wanted to kind of discuss here. So if you look at the high level picture, asking how exactly it works, right? So you have objective and key result here. So you see the objective will be written here. So you also mark whether it's aspirational or committed. 2 types of OKRs, right? So you have aspirational ones, you have commitments. So you just track whether it is aspirational or committed. Then you have a progress tracking here and your key results. So here we show 4 key results. And each key results will lead into multiple initiatives. So what you see here are the initiatives that you have, right? So initiative 1, initiative 2, that essentially means the key result 3 has 2 initiatives, and each initiative can be broken into epics. So this is where I think if you are a project manager, this is where you start stepping in, right? But having visibility into the upper layers will allow you to be more inspired, right? More empowered as well. So this is basically the structure from the epics. Then you know what's done, how it's done. So the ideally, right, in order to achieve one key result, you may create one or few initiatives. It's not mandatory to have multiple initiatives, but in case you can break down the complexity, break down the bigness of the key result, it's more appropriate for you to break your key results down into few initiatives, and each initiative should be valuable, impactful. They should deliver value, right? So I just have the full picture here. I just spoke about the 3 elements in the operating system that we recommend you. So you have the strategy, you have the priorities. We discussed that. We spoke about the execution. So there are 2 more elements that you have to focus as coaches and consultants if you truly want your organization to become a high-performing organization. That is, the 4th one is the people. You focus on the people. So the general rationale or the focus around people is putting the right people in the right seat, right? Your ability to identify the right people as well as assign them the right responsibility is key. Then the 5th element, crucial element for high performance, making high performing organizations, perfecting your execution, is lean processes, right? You have processes. Every organization have processes, but the question is, are they fat, right? Are they excessive? Are they overly prescribed? The answer is mostly yes, right? We have too many processes, too intensive processes. We don't need that. What we need is just enough processes, right, to get the work done. So the organizations fail at this as well, because if you look at a big organization, right, and you, even if you go as a coach, you have very, very less chances to change their processes, right? So how do you fix it? That's the problem, right? So if the organization has to fix themselves, the top leadership has to start asking these questions: how fatty our processes are. So you have to make them lean. Lean essentially means you have eliminated all the waste, right? You have basically optimized the value added activities. You do not have unnecessary processes prescribed, right? You have just enough, most appropriate set of processes to work on. So in a nutshell, this is basically what we got to discuss here. So again, our intention here was to give you a few pointers, kind of invite you to critically think about this topic. With this, we hope you go back and become curious about the topic. You probably would want to explore how it is done. So there is a big noise. So when I started adopting this a few years ago, so I started doing very serious work 4 years ago. But I started using this like 6 years ago with another coach working together with me. He basically was an OKR coach. By then I was just a agile coach working with him, right? So from that time I started digging deeper. So my ask for you is, probably this is the right time to get into this particular topic. This will become a very critical framework adopted by most of the organizations globally. soon. So into, I think 2021, I came up with a prediction. By 2025, this will become a prominent framework, right? By 2021, you wouldn't have heard of it, but here you hear it, right? That's why you are here. And more organizations talk about it, whether they do it right or wrong. Most of the organizations are very curious about it, right? And they also see and disrespect too heavy processes, right? If you look at some of the scale agile methods and frameworks, they have the challenge of making them simplified. So OKR is one of the most simplified yet profound, effective scaling methods, scaling frameworks that I have come across. So I pretty much have dropped everything else in terms of scaling. When I coach organizations, I have simplified my language, right? I don't introduce any complex technical jargon to any of these teams, right? I use mainstream agile methods, Scrum, Kanban, XP, etc. On top of it, I just use objectives and key results. I don't even have to, call it out. Without talking about it, I basically roll it out. So currently, I'm working with another consulting organization in Sri Lanka to roll out a consulting product, basically to push OKRs and mainly OKR adoption, the organizational excellence through OKRs globally, right? Yeah, so with that, I will stop talking. So you probably have 15 minutes, several minutes actually, right? So it's 9:30 our time.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
We are almost on time, but thank you so much, Miroshan, for beautifully explaining, the reasons of, having the vague vision and how to turn up that into, structured, effective execution of getting the OKRs. And it is really a very helpful and thoughtful session. And maybe we have few questions from the participants. Maybe I will just quickly go through that, and maybe you will just answer those questions. Okay, just start with the first one. What is the best format to report OKR to the senior management?
Okay. Just to clarify, I mean, your voice was breaking up for me. Do you hear me correct?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can hear
perfect. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, see, in terms of the format, what you need, okay, my alarm works, so we are on time. So in terms of the format, what you need to do is figure out a tool or software to use. Using Excel is perfectly all right initially, but there are quite a few OKR tools. So you need to kind of pick up one of them, right? So I generally, I'm a Jira consultant as well. So I basically implement the OKRs through Jira, because the most of the IT organizations that I coach and consult are using Jira. So I don't want to add another subscription in their list, right? So I basically utilize the existing subscription, which is a big cost anyway, right? Several thousands of dollars. So I use that, right? So in terms of how do you show up OKRs to them, this is how it happens, right? So you have OKRs at two levels. One, company-wide OKRs. So think of your CXO leadership. So say you have 7 CXOs, including the COO, CEO. So they meet regularly. They basically need to know what specific OKRs we are following, we are chasing. So what we need to do is to, using whatever the software, it could be a simple Excel visualization. You need to implement a tracker where it shows you OKRs together with the key results and the progress, right? In Jira, it's a Kanban board. You have a few columns like to do, right? In progress, review, yeah. Simple, the most simpler form, right? You may, I implement customized workflows as well, but If you consider that simple workflow, so you basically show your OKRs in that format, right? And then when you go into a particular objective, then you should be able to see your key results. So what I do is I create custom issue types under the objective and show them, right? And calculate the progress in a percent value as well. So that's one thing, right? If you use a tool, there are very good tools used. You can use some of them. One easy tool would be Week Done. It is a kind of a free tool as well. There are quite a few other tools that you can try out as well. So that's pretty much it, right? That's how you work with the leadership team. You are not showing. The entire leadership team is responsible to look at the tracker, OKR tracker week by week basis. So when we implement it, remember OKR is not just setting goals. It's not just goal setting framework. It is also implementing the cycle. Cycle includes weekly OKR review meetings done at the leadership level as well as the team level. Hopefully that answers the question.
Sure. I think you were also mentioning about the initiatives, right? So where we can also link or sync up those objectives and we can show.
Absolutely. So yeah, so they are linked, right? So when you open up a key result, it should show up the link to the initiatives associated with that key result. So, the tools are basically allowing you to auto-calculate the key result progress based on the progress made on the initiatives, right? So when they are done, when the initiatives are done, right, automatically the key results progress is updated as well. That way it's more than indicating the progress. It's a kind of a very effective visualization to have.
Right. Okay. So OKR, Jira attributes mapping and tracking. I think this is more of how we can align OKRs with Jira tool.
Right. Let me. So you are reading the list, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Let me also have a look at just to be sure.
So just to add on, the recent Jira Cloud has goals as an app added. I will share the link in the chat, and maybe let me quickly share my screen for the benefit of folks. So I shared the link of the Jira Cloud, so you can take a look at that, folks. I will share in the groups also. So we can define the goals, we can link with multiple projects, and we can even link with the risk. We can even take the decisions and the parent goal, sub goals, and what all the teams contributing to the goals, and what's the progress. From the form of the progress, we can even start talking about the metrics, what metrics, how we can define whether we want to manually track a metric or whether we want to update automatically by taking the Jira, the Epic, or the initiative or the story level updates. Now the Jira Atlassian also is upgrading, bringing up all these aspects, right? So you can start making use of it. So simple, how to navigate it. If in case you're already on Jira Cloud, we have the goals option here. Click that, it will navigate to the goals section. If in case it is not available or not active, you can talk to your admin, Jira admin at your organization. They might be able to enable, they might be able to check whether you as an enterprise have an access or not. For now, the Jira which I'm showing is a free version. So if I have it in the free version, which means definitely it will be available for the enterprise level subscriptions also.
So we have another tool also, right? Jira Align, where we can add all the OKRs and link that to Jira or ADO.
Yeah, Jira Align, mostly the organizations who are making use of scale agile, they might be using Jira Align. But as Niroshan was mentioning, right? So Jira Align comes in additional cost. Again, each license has a lot of additional costs. Right? So instead, we can try to make use of the existing Jira itself, where we can still integrate with multiple projects.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
it's basically double the cost. It's a good tool, but it's too expensive. Most of the organizations are not ready to go for that, right? Because the features are not so competitive for that pricing. So as consultants, we can help them to cut down the cost.
All right.
Good questions. Maybe Sasrika, like, would you just put the question in the chat? There's a bit of a lag. I think you hear me, but
Is it okay for others? I don't know. Is my voice clear?
For me, it's good.
No,
For me,
actually.
also it's good.
Okay, fine. I will maybe add the questions here.
okay. So maybe I'll just remove. Maybe it's to do with this, right? So, yeah. Oh, that messed up my. I actually. Let me do this.
So
I'm sharing the questions on the screen, Nero. We can take a look at that.
Let's try this. What about now?
yeah, so is my
Okay,
voice clear for you?
it's my end. Now it's perfect.
Okay, that's great. So this is
Right.
more of comparing with KPIs. Why we are giving importance to OKRs, right? Because they confuse them with the tasks or KPIs. So what is your advice to help the team clearly distinguish between an objective key result and the day-to-day work that supports them?
Let me run through the questions. Many schools struggle with writing OKRs because they confuse them with the tasks or KPI. What is your advice to help teams clearly distinguish? Okay, got it. So right. So here is the thing, right? Even I do train people on KPIs as well, right? So the clear distinction is this, right? The OKRs just talk about a different perspective altogether, right? It's about how key results are about how to get the objectives done, right? It's basically defining the milestones. So these are kind of very practical, progressive milestones that we want to make. On the other hand, the KPIs are just numbers that wouldn't change so often, right? So you come up with a KPI, the KPI stays for the same for a longer time, right? Is that useful? Yes, up to a level. But then, what it indicates is a kind of a static progress update, right? So you look at what's happening at that point, and you are able to measure what you are doing there, right? So in objectives and key results, when we set up them, we have a replacement. Instead of KPIs, we actually implement the scorecard. Remember in the diagram, the presentation that I had for you, right? So I spoke about that aspect. So the execution is done through tracking of the lively metrics, the pulse checks that we do, right? We don't want to, set up KPIs, kind of monitor the performance, looking back and then, kind of judging, right? What we want to see, what we want to do in terms of OKRs is like you set clear milestones, you try to achieve them. While you're trying to achieve them, you basically have metrics that are being tracked. Week by week basis, you look at them and get a pass check and then move on, make progress and achieve the milestones, right? So, as soon as you are done with key result, right? On the other hand, KPIs will have to be monitored throughout the year, and then halfway through, you are not able to get any quantifiable, any sensible uh, indication in terms of the execution happening. So that's the key difference, right? So I also see that, particularly those companies and individuals who are pretty much familiar with the KPIs kind of start getting confused over the KPIs as well. KPIs is, I mean, just look at it this way, right? You're just comparing objectives with KPIs, right? It's not two things that do the same thing. So that's basically what I have to say here.
Okay. So why only OKRs and why not other frameworks?
Okay, right. Why OKRs? Because it's one of the proven most simplified management methodologies, critical thinking frameworks, right? If it works for Google, and if Larry Page repeatedly claims the single reason why they are 10xing every few years' time is OKRs, why not other companies, right? So, yeah, personally, I see the growth personally because of this tool, right? The clarity that I did not have is achieved through this, right? It's not just that, it's also the cycle. So the other frameworks, goal setting frameworks, just talk about the setting and one-off tracking, right? And until the end of the year, no one is gonna know what's going on, right? At the end of the year, look at the objectives and start wondering what's gone wrong. And this is not that, right? This is basically a critical thinking framework as well as a tool which allows you to set the goals, track them, and ensure you achieve them. That's why this is a kind of a well-proven methodology for majority of the world at this point.
So any tools which provide out-of-the-box implementation automation for OKRs?
I'm not see, the same question is asked by a lot of organizations. So I'm also kind of in the ideation stage where should I initiate a different product? I see a lot of products. If you even Google or ChatGPT, you ask the mostly adopted OKR tools, you get a lot of tools. But since I haven't tried them, I'm not able to recommend anything at this point, right? But as Satish said, if you have trust on Atlassian, you can probably start adapting that. Week done is something that I've been using for some time. It works, right? Uh, yeah, so I mean, there are quite a few other tools that I'm yet to test out. But when generally uh, organizations ask me the same question, I tend to defer that question a bit. I rather get their focus on the implementation than the tool, right? Because getting this set up is not a big deal, right? And doing a bit of automation manually uh, gets you to a position where you can actually get a solid system up and running. Of course, there are now, I did a slight research on this as well. There seems to be quite a lot of tools being introduced, particularly with AI capabilities, but I am yet to kind of try them. So you can do that research yourself, right? Also, we can have that discussion further.
Sure.
Being with us, we will talk about this topic in upcoming sessions as well.
For sure. Exactly. Okay, so can you share a real example of a company that used OKRs to move from vision to measurable impact?
Yeah, I mean, Google, right? The first thing, then the Intel, and you look at LinkedIn, Microsoft, they all use OKRs. And I did a very high level research to see whether Tesla is using it, BYD is using it. They are disrupting the EV market, right? What I found is that they are using similar approach. They haven't publicized anywhere claiming that they are using OKRs clearly, but their approach seems to be aligned with what we discuss here, right? It's definitely agile and short iterations where they kind of disrupt the things. They have very ambitious goals. They have very specific key results. Look at how BYD kind of exceeded the overall sales in the world, right? Became leader in the EV industry, right? So that requires quick execution, effective execution. It requires so many lively metrics that they should be able to track every day, and innovation. And it's basically driven. And what I found is that particularly BYD, they have a research team who is constantly researching the most sophisticated features, and they keep implementing these features. When they want to produce a car, it's a matter of just picking up the features that they feel fit into a given market, right? And they plug and play, right? And then you see, I mean, I drive a BYD. It's impressive. I mean, like, it's 3 times higher pricing to get the same kind of features in a different model, different brand, right? So these are classic examples, right? And in order to look for a formal uh, client company using it, probably the easiest example is Google. There are enough white papers, enough videos published explaining how exactly they use OKR in their organization. Start there, right? Most of the OKR advocates are from Google, at least the original ones, right? John Doe is one of them. He talks about his own experience working with Larry Page, scaling Google to this level through this. So,
Okay. All right. So next is what is one small change as a manager or leadership can start tomorrow to make OKRs more meaningful?
oh, that's a wonderful question. This is a question I ask when I try to consult, right? And having this proposal been in progress, I'm pretty much asking what is the most simplified, the recommendation that I can send to them. So I think one small change that I propose that you can start tomorrow is ask the question: Have you created sufficient clarity? Right? Ask that question. When you ask that question, you'll have a lot of problems to answer that question directly, right? Is it clear enough, right? Ask that question personally. I think every one of us here is ambitious about our future, right? But what we do is very different to each other. What Satish does, what I do, what Sasirika would do would be very different. That's because of that question, right? How clear it is for me in terms of the right direction. So although we have been in the industry, we have been doing the same thing. Probably, we do take very different stances, right? So I had to sit down so many hours. Even right now, I have so many exciting priorities in my head, right? I also have initiated some of them. In public, I have committed saying I'm writing 100 productivity hacks, and I'm going to release the ebook. And then I have said, I have come up with few other initiatives in the background. At this point, I'm also just going to sit down and ask this question, is that crystal clear what you're doing, right? And then this is now I have actually narrowed my focus into one single thing, putting down a product, right? I want to productize the OKR consultation so that I can plug and play. At the moment, it's kind of manual. I have been doing that for a few years, right? So this is exactly what I suggest. So OKR is about effective execution, right? For you to execute effectively, you have to have so much clarity. So start there.
Right. Yeah. So how did you initiate the OKRs launch and what are all the driving forces and challenges during this journey?
Okay, myself. I think the question is about launching OKR services myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Yeah. So it started with the hook, right? I was hooked by it. It's almost an emotional trigger. So, certain emotions hook you so badly, right? And this was that. So I resonated really deeply when I heard what it does, how it kind of guides the organizations to create clarity, mainly around that, and enable critical thinking. I was really inspired, and then I was already confused and overwhelmed with so many uh, management methodologies and scaled frameworks, right? Even now, I mean, there are quite a lot of things, and it's kind of evolving all the time, right? And you see, I have interviewed Jugan Apollo, which is a great mind, critical thinker. So he himself has kind of dropped some of them and moved into different focus areas, right? He invented a lot of scaling methods, right? Management 3.0 was his invention, right? So looking at all of it, right? Like what he was thinking, I was thinking how to simplify these things, and particularly to scale up my consulting, I had to find a common language, right? A bridge to uh, bridge the gap, a tool to bridge the gap between the strategic leaders and the executors. This is that, right? So how I launch? That's a great question. I initiated some self-initiative. I self-initiated few things. One was the podcast, right? With that, I basically announced that I'm gonna do that, and then I did a deep dive research above OKR certifications and came up with a comprehensive OKR consultancy certification track, right? Which is almost 1/3 of the regular pricing in the Europe. So in Europe, for you to become a OKR consultant, it takes about 5,000 euros, right? So there are around 3 different certifications to do. So I actually sat down, had a very focused attention on that certification track, implemented it, right? That's what we are training now. Satish is a core trainer, right, in that. So we are basically doing that. So that's how we launch. And we are, at the same time, on top of it, if you are onto agile coaching, your journey is not that tough. But if you are not onto coaching, it's a bit of a long journey, at least, it's going to take time. So my advice in that case would be start with mainstream agile coaching, right? On top of it, scale up to the leadership level. So OKR can help there. Yeah.
So do we have a separate role like OKR coach and like how we
Not
have?
at the moment. Not at the moment. So I mean, see, it's never that at the moment, at least in APAC countries. So it's basically you have been reached out due to your OKR coaching visibility. So even this company just reached out to me for the OKR, the agile coaching, nothing else, right? They knew it's a cross-functional accountability issue. They basically reached out to me for that, but I am gonna use OKR in that coaching engagement. So that's the most tactical move that you can make. Never, you can sell it separately as well. I am also promoting myself and kind of selling myself into companies that way. But whenever I get an agile coaching opportunity, I basically go with that, right? And see where I can start using OKRs.
Okay, so we have one last question. Post drafting OKRs, its KPIs when things are not in our hands. Ops has to take their role for measurements, and other teams when they don't want to get these numbers. How we should look at the OKR?
Long question. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Did you understand it?
Post drafting Yeah.
After OKRs and KPIs when things are not in our hands, of sense to take
more of
their role.
Operational teams
Other
like
teams,
have to take their role for measurements and other things when they don't want to get these numbers.
Post drafting OKRs. Okay. Yeah. So basically, right. So what you have to do is, yeah, there are a lot of parts enabled. So I think I spoke about the system. Having an appropriate system is key. Otherwise, it's a lot of confusions, right? Some people will not understand the terminology itself, right? So implementing that structure is key. So you need to structure at the leadership level. You define the OKRs at the leadership level. So for the departmental leaders, heads and VPs, they basically become responsible for crafting OKRs for their unit, right? Then if it's a cross-functional unit, you need to get everyone in that cross-functional unit craft and agree on the OKR. So it's not just siloed game, right? So you don't craft and pass it down or pass it up, right? So we say, you need to do it at the top. At the same time, you get the bottom production teams crafting their own OKRs, right? So they kind of communicate that them for the leadership level discussions. They look at them kind of align together, right? So it's not just leadership deciding everything. It's also getting the input from the team through the divisional leadership, team leadership, right? So when you implement the system, it is important that you clear out the jargons a bit. So if you are using KPIs, you have to be very extra careful not to get confused over these multiple terms. So I would rather just go by OKR system, and there you have the metrics scorecard, right? So you can replace your KPIs. It's an enhanced version of KPIs actually, right? You get a past check weekly basis, and at the end of a quarter, year, you will have all the records, right? You can look at the overall progress being made through that. So I think simplifying the system, reducing the complexity of the tools is critical there.
All right, I think then we are come to the end of the session. And thank you so much, Niroshan, and we deeply appreciate your time and valuable contribution. And thank you for sharing your expertise and leaving us with powerful takeaways. And
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Satish, can you share the certification of appreciation, please?
Sure thing. Just a minute. So for every speaker, we give a small token of appreciation, Nero. So here is a small certificate, digital certificate on our behalf. Thanks for taking your time over the weekend. So I will share this certificate on the email to you. And thanks to all the participants for bringing your questions and making sure you are clarified with the pointers, anything as such.
Yeah, that was a very engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, then thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Satish.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
Ashish.
everyone.
Cheers.
good
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.